Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sigma Prism YouTube channel. Today, we have the long-awaited interview with Spectrum Labs. They are the team formerly known as ErgoDex, for those of you that have been following the community updates in the Ergo community. Welcome, Spectrum Labs. Thank you for joining.
Hey, Anthony. Thank you for having us today.
Yeah, hello. It's our pleasure to be here.
Perfect. So you guys have undergone a very important part of the Ergo ecosystem, which is building a genuine DEX, a decentralized exchange. And this is really important for a variety of reasons that we're going to get into today. But before we get into that, what are each of your individual professional backgrounds and expertise as part of Spectrum Labs?
Let me start. Speaking of the background, previously I was working in a couple of blockchain startups as a core developer, including Ergo platform. So that's why we started building on Ergo first. And in Spectrum as well, I'm working as a core developer mostly, and as CTO. So I'm managing our developers, mostly core developers. And my responsibility is to work on the protocol itself. For example, speaking of Spectrum DEX, I'm working on smart contracts, describing new features, new protocols. Now we are working on liquidity farming on top of ErgoDex. So I'm working with researchers, other core developers, making code review. That's all my responsibilities.
Perfect. How about for you, Yasha?
And if we talk about me, I started my career as a manager in a venture firm. Also, during those times, I first time met crypto and stuff like that. So yeah, I was working a little bit on this venture firm in Russia. So then I started my career as a developer, as an interface developer and worked in some large companies also in Russia. So I think 1.5 years ago, we met with Ilya and started the project. Initially, I was a UI developer. So, but when our team grew, I became some kind of a manager who is responsible for everything. And sometimes I'm coding, sometimes I'm managing, sometimes I'm preparing some research stuff for some strategic stuff for the company, and doing mostly all of the work to support and push the protocol forward. Yes,
perfect.
Kind of a diluted set of responsibilities, I know, but it is startup, you know.
Right. It's a very ambitious project. What made you want to build on Ergo first?
We started building Ergo first because I was developing Ergo with other core developers.
Right.
And when we launched it in the summer 2019, we started developing Ergo ecosystem, preparing Ergo ecosystem for future apps, for future developers that come later and start building on top of Ergo. There was a huge demand for a DEX on top of Ergo, and I decided that I should start building this project, and I've built first version of Ergo DEX in about 3 months. We launched testnet version of Ergo DEX in summer 2021, and later decided to scale also to Cardano, and later to scale to multi-chain. So we decided to make something more than just two DEXs on two chains, Ergo and Cardano. So we need something like Spectrum network that works on top of many blockchains.
Perfect. You have two different products now that you've done a brand overhaul to best meet your consumer base, which is obviously going to be much wider than just Ergo at this point in time. You have Spectrum Network and Spectrum Finance. Very briefly, could you break down the features and distinctions between both of these two core products you're offering?
Yeah, this topic requires some clarification, I guess. So Spectrum Finance is a protocol that combines many finance protocols in itself. An example is our DEX, which is currently already working. And speaking of Spectrum Network, in the context of Spectrum Finance, it's a backend that will allow Spectrum Finance to be cross-chain, to be interoperable with other blockchains, and Spectrum Network will allow building natively cross-chain applications on top of it. So Spectrum Finance can be cross-chain, can aggregate liquidity from other blockchains. And speaking of Spectrum Network itself, we are considering moving forward with it as a separate product, to develop it as a platform for general purpose builders. But on this, we will be working later to develop ecosystem to attract DApp developers that would build on top of Spectrum. It's a huge work. First of all, we want to design Spectrum properly, test it in-house, and build our solution on top of Spectrum to also show other developers how and what kind of applications can be built on top of Spectrum Network.
How about the code? Is that open source, or is that?
Yeah, it's completely open source. We already started working on a networking layer of Spectrum client. So you can find the source code in Rust on our GitHub.
Perfect. What was the difficulty in trying to not only build the DEX on Ergo side, but also, as you are, I believe at this point in time, Vassal has not been released yet?
Not yet.
Knowing that you guys are ready to implement the Cardano side and not have that hard fork ready, what has been the difficulty you've encountered in trying to incorporate different scripting languages, since you mentioned that you were on the Ergo side already? Obviously, that uses Ergo script built on Scala, and then you have to also learn Haskell, which is a different native scripting language for Cardano.
Haskell is a general purpose language, but scripting language on Cardano is called Platus, and it's based on Haskell.
Oh, I see. So it's Plutus. What has been the difficulty in implementing Plutus then? If you're basically literally bridging two different languages on this side and that side, and making them work together when they're, at heart, they're different, although they share the same transaction architecture, which is UTXO, extended UTXO.
Yeah, it's a good question. I already told it previously that comparing building on top of Ergo and on top of Cardano, if we compare those two ecosystems, obviously Ergo is much more mature to the point. Because on Ergo, we basically built the core of our DEX in about, as I said, in about 3 months. We implemented all the core features of the protocol, and later we were just improving UI, our off-chain bots, etc. And on Cardano, we have been building since last July, I guess, so more than a year already. The main difficulty with Cardano is that Cardano is constantly evolving. Its code base is constantly updated. Updates usually are not backward compatible. So you write code, they update their core libraries, and you have to heavily refactor your code to update, to migrate to those new dependencies. So it's a bit difficult. Cardano protocol itself is more complex compared to Ergo. Ergo protocol is, I'd say, it's simple and elegant. So even newcomers can come and build on Ergo in a couple of weeks. On Cardano, you have to learn many things to build to build something more or less complex on top of Cardano. But I'd say that AMM protocol, right, like Ergo DEX, like Spectrum DEX now, it's not very complex. There are many other, many more complex protocols like lending protocols, etc. They are much more complex, but even to build a DEX, it was not an easy task. But as I said, that's because Cardano is actively developed currently. It's being improved, but the ecosystem is quite immature currently. So developers that would like to come on Cardano and start building on it, they will have hard times figuring out how to work with all that tooling, how to start. It's the most difficult part, I think. But I believe Cardano is improving. The ecosystem is becoming more friendly for developers. So we had to research most part of the Cardano code base, the code base of Cardano node, because our off-chain bots are reusing code from Cardano node. So our Cardano bots implementation, they are written in Haskell, and contracts. First, we have written our contracts in Platus, but later we found out that that contracts written in Platus, they are too expensive, too computationally expensive, and too large in terms of memory. So there was a tool called Plutarch, developed by a company called MLabs. It's Haskell developers. We are also working with them. So they developed a great tool called Plutarch. It's something like a UDSL, embedded domain-specific language built on top of core representation of Cardano smart contracts. And this tool allows, like, using some low-level abstractions, write more efficient code, more efficient smart contracts for Cardano. So you basically set aside all your code written in Plutus and re-implement everything on Plutarch. That's what we did this spring, and we gain a drastic improvement in terms of performance, in terms of memory. So that's something we can move forward with. And currently, yeah, we by that moment we already tested Cardano DEX in the testnet. But this testnet was replaced with the next hard fork called Vassal. So our testnet it was invalid until we update everything to Vassal. And as I said, updates are very painful in Cardano. So you have to update so many dependencies, rewrite so much code. So it was a huge work, and it's almost completely done currently. So we will launch Vassal testnet again, and then launch mainnet.
Now, what you've mentioned there might be a source of great frustration for the Ergo community. From what it seems, from a non-developer standpoint, you have this very elegant, very simple, true or false scripting language with Ergo that is very easy to implement and build on. Yeah, we don't have nearly as much building as the Cardano side of things. And what do you attribute that to? Why is it, since now you are one of the very few people at this point in time that is seeing both sides of this equation, you're able to compare and contrast. And it seems that, you know, with Cardano currently under development constantly, and you have to really be on top of it, otherwise it won't be backwards compatible. Why is it that despite all of those kind of obstacles that Cardano may have on the Plutus side, why is there no building on Ergo? And when I say no building, I mean very little in comparison to the Cardano side.
Well, I guess the answer is the amount of marketing and the amount of funds dedicated to attraction of new developers. For example, Ergo don't have anything even similar to what's called Catalyst on Cardano. It's a separate project for funding different teams that would like to come to Cardano and build something. So on Cardano, it's completely different funding possibilities. It's completely different marketing. So if on Ergo currently, as I can see from my point of view, mostly on Ergo coming those developers that truly believe in what values Ergo propagate. And they come to Ergo and build their applications on top of Ergo because they truly believe in Ergo. On Cardano, of course, there is a much stronger, let's say, network effect. Many different people are coming to Cardano, but I'm afraid there is also an opposite side of that effect, that developers which are not truly confident in what they are building, not truly believe in decentralization. They just maybe some of them come for funding because just because there are more money on Cardano. So I guess Ergo is developing quite organically. So I'm seeing that lately many new developers coming to Ergo and building something. That's much less quantitatively, I mean, projects are building on Ergo than on Cardano, but it's a matter of time, I guess.
Right. Well, I appreciate those answers. Yeah, it seems that building on Ergo has to be kind of a self-propelled reward. You know, you come and you do what you're going to do, not necessarily because there's any third party to help bring you up. Yeah, incentives. But the incentive is to have, from what I'm understanding, a better experience programming, and also more resilient proof of work layer that can obviously handle different security assumptions, and you don't have to worry too much. Thank you for those answers. So I wanted to ask about the differences between the AMM, yeah, automated market maker format of doing exchanging, and also the order book. Now, as I understand it, order books are predominantly used right now on decentralized exchanges, and the automated market makers are used on more things like centralized exchanges. Would that be correct or no?
I think that's
it's the opposite.
Yeah, it's the opposite. So mostly on centralized exchanges, you are using order books, and on decentralized exchanges, mostly you use AMM, and I will explain why. So AMM involves a thing called liquidity pool, where liquidity providers deposit their assets in the proportion of their price relative to each other. And other users which come to this exchange and want to swap one asset for another, they make a swap from that pool. So they contribute, for example, if I want to swap ERC for SIG-USD, I deposit ERC to the Sigma USD ERC pool, and those Sigma USD tokens, which I bought, they are coming to me from that pool. So the pool is always the intermediary part between in the process of this exchange. In the order book model, users deal with each other mostly, or with bots. So one user posts an order. They just fill an order. I want to sell that much of tokens for that price, for example. And those orders are matched with a special engine with each other. For example, you posted an order for to sell store ERCs for some price, and I posted an order that I want to buy, for example, 200 ERCs. And so my order got filled partially with your order. They are matched together, and you get one token of the pair, and I get ERC that I bought. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense if people were familiar with how the centralized exchanges they use to onboard into the ecosystems work. I think from what I've seen, KuCoin does a good job of exposing, or maybe even Binance, they have an option for you to see the order book in real time, and you can literally see what is the minimum somebody's willing to pay and what's the minimum people are willing to sell, and that becomes the spread. But on something like maybe Coinbase or some of these other ones that try to be they attempt to be more user-friendly. It seems like they hide a lot of that activity behind the scenes, and people are not very much aware of how exchanges are being done. But in your case, you guys are offering both. You guys are, your team is offering both options, correct?
No, currently we are offering only AMM. We also actually we developed order book protocol even before AMM, but we haven't launched it in the mainnet because of the concerns of completely open market, which can lead to some different kinds of manipulations. For example, wash trading is possible because it's completely open. It's order book, and also it was less in demand on the Ergo. And let me explain why AMM DEXs are more common on blockchains. The reason is because AMM it's designed that way that it's more suitable for less liquid pairs. So if a pair is very liquid, it can be served with the order book. It will really make sense. But if there is not much liquidity and there won't be many orders and enough volume, order book DEX won't make any sense for users, and it won't be like useful for users because if there is no orders, you can't technically buy anything. You can't technically use this order book. And AMM DEX, it's built and designed that way that it can serve even very little liquid pairs. For example, some new project holds an IDO on Spectrum DEX. Usually they have total TVL of $100K. It's not much, trust me. And if they would like to start their IDO on order book DEX, they would have to, or on some centralized exchange with order book, they will be required to pay for market making services. Maybe you've heard about it. So just not possible without market making. That's why on blockchains and for trading most of the tokens, more useful are AMM DEXs. They are more suitable for them.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think the amount of knowledge that you have about kind of both sides of this is very interesting. You guys are also working on, as if that wasn't enough work, you're also working on a standalone wallet that will actually be complete with the built-in DEX from Spectrum being offered. Now, one of the questions that I've always wondered, and now I have an opportunity to ask, will there be a future where people will be able to abandon centralized exchanges? I'm not saying if it would be legal in certain jurisdictions, but is that in theory possible to have a non-KYC compliant DEX that replaces all of these bottlenecking centralizing entities? And then also, of course, from the privacy side, to be able to onboard fiat someday without essentially asking for permission?
Yeah, thanks for a great question. I guess one point that will help us to even now, this point helps us to have a gateway to decentralized finance without the need to work with some centralized entities like centralized exchanges, is proof of work layer one blockchain like Ergo. One of the good advantages of proof of work is that it allows to it allows people to enter cryptocurrency without passing their money through centralized entities like exchanges. You don't have to buy ERG directly on some exchange and then through the gateway withdraw them to ERG blockchain. You can invest your money into mining hardware, mine Ergo, and earn Ergo directly via proof of work. So in that case, proof of work is a gateway for people without KYC, without any centralized entities, to the world of decentralized finance and cryptocurrency. Speaking of Spectrum Wallet, it's a part of our long-term vision. And I'd say that currently we haven't considered anything like any tools that would allow you to exchange your fiat for cryptocurrency. It's not what we are focusing on currently. But as I said, again, proof of work is a good tool for that already. In comparison, for example, with proof of stake, because you can't enter proof of stake without buying this coin on exchange. You have to go through all these stages of KYC and etc.
And I also would like to highlight some points regarding this question, because it's really a painful problem to, acquire liquidity from a traditional finance to crypto in a global scope, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need some tool to simply transfer fiat currency to cryptocurrency somehow, yeah? And currently, everyone is using centralized exchanges for that purpose, yeah? Or some services like Coin, if I remember correctly, or there are some services to swap fiat currency from your MasterCard or Visa to the crypto, or Ethereum, Bitcoin, or stuff like that, yeah? And for such kind of operations, you will always need to pass KYC. And I think it's not even possible, even in future, to kind of avoid this process. If you would like to transfer your fiat currency to crypto, you will always need to pass KYC, and that is because the pressure from authorities, and they will not disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you mine that coin.
What?
Unless you mine that coin.
Yeah, sure. But as I mentioned, the most part of the financial value currently is in the traditional finance, yeah? And if we would like to grow the global crypto community, we need some kind of tool to transfer this value to crypto, yeah? And all the crypto community just interested in that, because we know on what kind of value it will impact, yeah? And as for the future for Spectrum Wallet, because I have been thinking about this bottleneck a lot already. And I think perhaps we will add such kind of a feature to transfer fiat currency to crypto, for example, for ERG, to simplify the user journey. We maybe will add it, and we will use a third-party service for that. So all of the users' data will be stored on the side of this third-party service, and we will not store any user data. We will just use some kind of an open API or a paid API, which this service will provide us, and a user will simply have an ability to buy Erg, for example, using his MasterCard or Visa, and he will pass KYC process on the side of the third-party service, but he will receive Erg in our wallet. We can consider the journey, the user path like that in the future, but currently it's only ideas.
Do you envision the Spectrum wallet being non-custodial and open source as well?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
Just everything will be according to our first principles. Any piece of this software will be open sourced, yeah. And of course, non-custodial.
Perfect. It needs to be said because now with the MetaMask and some users in some countries have been assuming that it was non-custodial and they would be blacklisted. So that's good. I wouldn't want it any other way. I think if a wallet is custodial, it defeats the purpose of just having a wallet. You might as well just have kept that on the exchange because it would have been the same difference, in my opinion, in many ways. Already on the Ergo side, first of all, congratulations on the great user experience. It's obvious that you guys have taken note that user experience is typically lacking in the majority of the crypto industry. And although the Cardano side is not yet finished, if anybody were to go to your DEX, they would find a very simple platform and layout where everything is very easy to understand and even color coded for like orange and red on the Ergo side. I know you guys are going under rebranding and all that, but it's obvious that user experience was a big factor in your considerations. So on the Ergo side, you already have many coins, which is great. Not too many actually have utility, right? They're like meme coins and things like that. Some of them do, like ErgoPad and others. And I'm sure that's going to continue to grow. But what is the auditing process like for those new tokens that are looking to become options or open a liquidity pool on the Ergo side for now?
Well, look, here it's important to highlight that Spectrum or ErgoDex previously is an open protocol that lives in a blockchain, yeah? So token owners or projects, anyone who have some kind of token can list it anytime because it is a completely open protocol. So, however, a protocol can have multiple user interfaces and multiple user interface providers. So one of the providers of the Spectrum protocol is we in general. And for this kind of a verification process, it's kind of simple from our side because anyone can just request an addition for the token, just filling the form in our GitHub repository. And currently, we will make a centralized decision to add it or not to our UI. We estimate some indicators, just like the does project have social networks and website, and does the community have an interest in this token? So we combine all of this together and decide will we list the token or not. Over time, we will move away from making any centralized decisions. So on changes in the protocol or any company management decisions, and we'll establish DAO as it's kind of an organic evolution of any decentralized protocol, yeah? So in the future, the community will determine which tokens to add to the interface, which token to remove from the interface if they don't like to use it. And yeah, it will work something like that.
Yeah, I would like to add that technically it's not even a listing, it's just a marking of those tokens as verified by our team. So technically, if you like to find pools which are not verified by our team, you can switch to the unsafe view in our UI and trade pairs which are not verified.
Perfect. Now that you mentioned the word DAO, you have an upcoming native token, the SPF token. So users can and customers have a direct way of investing into your project. How will that function? Is that a governance token? How does that token, how do you view that being implemented within the current framework you're operating in?
Yeah, it has multiple utilities. First of all, governance in the DAO, of course. Secondly, it's a way to pay for fees on Spectrum in our applicational protocols. And at third, it's a native token for, it's not even called in that context a token, but rather a coin. It's a native coin in Spectrum network. It's used for incentivizations for validators.
Right. Okay. Makes perfect sense. Are there any other partnerships that you can speak on that will be integral in your team's success with the ambitious visions that you have? Because obviously one team cannot do it alone. The success as you broaden your scope will depend on other things as well. What type of partnerships would that look like? Will that include?
Yeah, we are collaborating with multiple teams on Ergo, namely Ergo and Neta, for example. Yasha can expand on our collaboration with Ergo.
Yeah, we collaborated with Ergo to establish an accelerator to bring more value to the Ergo ecosystem, because we're conducting only on the Ergo side when helping new projects to reach more audience. So from the other side, we help projects with marketing, and ErgoPad helps them raising funds and setting the vesting parameters, establishing tokenomics, and all of these things. So talking about us regarding partnerships, we're going to establish partnership with the aim of attracting new users to the Ergo product, to the Ergo ecosystem and our protocol. So for example, we already have several agreements with centralized exchanges for the listing for a token. For technical partnerships, we have a partnership with MLabs. They help us with some minor tasks on the Cardano side of the protocol. Yeah, and do you remember any other our partnership? I think
yes. Speaking of our partnership with Neta, we are a part of their scheme. How is it called? Where they provide
LISO.
It's called LISO. So they provide liquidity to our DEX.
Perfect. Now, you seek to incorporate other blockchains such as Ethereum. You're not going to stop with just Ergo and Cardano, which are kind of easier to do, at least from a transaction architecture point of view, right? Extended UTXO. You also, I've read on your content sites, your Medium page, you aim to include Ethereum at some point. So with that, does that essentially does that mean that you have to learn the scripting language now again, a new one, Solidity in this case, in order to be able to incorporate, or will that come from third-party actors that want to come into what you've already built?
No, speaking of integrating EVM chains to Spectrum network, we are rather talking about developing a special adapter that would read the state of Ethereum blockchain, for example, and convert it to some kinds of events which are specific for Spectrum network protocol. We would need to work with Solidity in case we decide to add on-chain proofs to Ethereum. Probably this would involve something like ZK snarks, etc. But currently they are not very practical. It's a developing technology, so currently we are not working on this. First of all, we just add support for Ethereum without on-chain proofs. We will be working with Ethereum like a side chain.
I see. Do you have anything you would like to add about, for example, get blocks integration of Plasma? Is that something that can also be utilized on Spectrum Finance?
No. Plasma, it's more about a roll-up technology. Spectrum is a different kind of technology. Spectrum is designed to be cross-chain, and it is designed to allow other developers to build cross-chain applications on top of itself. So roll-ups are not suitable for that kind of functionality. They are not suitable for cross-chain because roll-ups they are committed to some particular blockchain. They can't work with many blockchains. So we rather need a combination of roll-up technology, L2, and sidechain. So we obviously need our own consensus for Spectrum network. It will rely on L1 like Ergo, most likely, but it's more complex than just a rollup.
Got it. Finally, to wrap up a very interesting conversation about this not well understood technology and also very difficult to do properly type of exchange and decentralized. Two final questions. As you help to provide interoperability, do you anticipate any certain type of attack vectors that can pop up? For example, if you did have Ethereum without the on-chain proofs and you had them on a side chain and things of that nature, or essentially what are the security risks when you are basically building some sort of ambitious project like this, where a lot of actors are involved and a lot of different transactions between chains are taking place?
Yeah, it's a very important question, actually. So when you want to build a cross-chain solution, the main obstacle and the main threat you are going to deal with is to handle correctly all the state rollback on the opposite chain. For example, what if, let's imagine a simple case. For example, I make a cross-chain transaction. I send my ERGs to some vault on Ergo, and I'm expecting to receive, for example, wrapped ERGs on Ethereum. This bridge performs this transaction. It sees that I transferred my ERGs to the vault on Ergo, and releases wrapped ERGs on Ethereum, for example. And then on the Ergo, a rollback is performed. So basically, this transaction is rolled back. Currently, so we end up in a state when where I when I haven't spent any ERCs, but I received wrapped ERCs on Ethereum. So I basically received as many ERCs for free as I wanted to swap.
Right.
The simplest,
easy.
yeah. The most trivial solution, which I used the most currently, is to wait some amount of blocks, like to wait for the 100% settlement of the transaction on Ergo, and then release on the other blockchain. That's the simplest solution. Another threat is the consensus itself. So how those oracles, which monitor both chains, how they reach consensus, how they work. If that's a centralized party, if it's one validator, it's basically a centralized exchange. You just send in your funds on one blockchain to some wallet, centralized wallet, and you receive on the other blockchain tokens from other centralized wallet. So it's a custodial solution. Many present bridges like Wormhole are built on a decentralized solution, as it claimed, but basically their consensus consists of about 8 fixed nodes, which are fixed forever. So it's a pool of concrete 8 nodes which are fixed, and you send your funds to the multi-sig wallet. So basically, it's a custodial. Not custodial. It's just a multi-sig wallet which is controlled by 8 nodes. So some eight parties, and that's a kind of solution which most bridges are using currently. Currently it's called a decentralized bridge, but in the essence, it's basically a multi-sig wallet, and that's the main threat. What if some of those parties, for example, 4 nodes or 3 nodes, it's not very hard for them to collude. So for now they are behaving properly, but who can guarantee that they will continue to do it? So the idea of Spectrum is to build an open network that would allow for thousands of validators, which can come and quit dynamically. So the idea is to not bind to some fixed set of validators. Yeah, so that's basically the main obstacles, the main threats. It's decentralization and how to handle different kinds of rollback, etc. And the third point is to it's more of a complication, is how to design protocol that way to manage on-chain vaults, which will be used to receive tokens on one chain and to release tokens on the other chain. It should be some kind of multi-sig wallet, but this multi-sig wallet should be controlled not by some fixed number of participants, but by a quorum of by an open quorum of many different nodes that always rotate always come and quit. It's not an easy task, but it's doable. And that's the protocol that we are designing for Spectrum.
Yeah, as I'm realizing, to talk about these topics it could get very complex. Now, very quickly as a follow-up, what the attack vectors that you are highlighting, that you're seeking to sort of decrease the likelihood of potentially happening, or avoiding the possibility altogether by not choosing some of these kind of easier way outs, which end up being custodial remedies that do not fit within the ethics of a decentralized exchange at heart. Is your team the first one to really, if you were to do this the way you would like, would it be the first type of decentralized exchange to successfully overcome some of these attack vectors, or are there other ones out there that might be already doing so in their own degree?
I said that there are some similar projects in the crypto field that are making a cross-chain DEX. But speaking of those which are already functional, they are also based on centralized consensus. Centralized, not centralized, actually, it's decentralized, but it consists of a fixed number of nodes as well as a wormhole. So it's as
so
decentralized as
nobody's doing what you're doing, essentially, in the way that you want to approach it successfully.
Successfully not. I know one project called Ava, which is also working on an Oracle protocol, which is based on Oracle protocol is essentially the same. It addresses the same set of problems. So it's basically very similar solution. Yeah, it's this project. They are also working on a open protocol, which allows for many nodes which are rotating. They are working on an open cross-chain protocol. They are more focused on a bridge for events. So it will be more like a bridge, like an Oracle, which can provide some information about some events from other blockchain to some smart contracts on another blockchain. So it's like a bridge for events, for information. As far as I know, they are also they also want to use it as a bridge for tokens to aggregate cross-chain liquidity, but they are also just in process. They don't have an MVP as far as I know, even.
Well, yeah. Sorry for hitting you with these questions that are a bit unscripted. I know I'm realizing that these are very big challenges and not easy solutions to overcome, easy things to answer right off the top of the head. So finally, with that being said, it's difficult to argue that Ergo will not benefit substantially from the cross-chain exchange between Cardano and Ergo. And the user base is substantially more significant right now than Ergo is. And the market caps speak for themselves. It cannot be more night and day. That would mean that Ergo stands to benefit from a massive influx of users and also potentially liquidity by using your DEX as a settlement and as an exchange between these two platforms. What does the future of Ergo look like in your view, and of decentralized exchanges? And if you could briefly touch on how the wrapping of tokens function. Does that mean if I have a Cardano native asset token, I will only get an Ergo equivalent of the wrapped asset because it's not, I don't believe they're directly compatible, right? Or no?
Well, speaking of Speaking of DEX, on Spectrum, we will build a natively cross-chain DEX, so the swap will not require any wrapped tokens. So you can you can exchange real ERG to real ADA. So you will provide ERG on the Ergo blockchain side and receive ADA on the Cardano blockchain side. I'm speaking currently about final vision about the DEX, which will be implemented on top of Spectrum network. Speaking of exchange via bridge, it almost usually involves some kind of wrapped tokens. So bridge can only pass some information from one blockchain to another. So with the bridge, you will be able, for example, to swap ERG from Ergo blockchain to wrapped ERGs on Cardano blockchain, and vice versa. So that's the main point of bridge. I'm not sure about the plans of implementing some kind of swap protocol on top of Rosen bridge, which is currently being tested. It should become the first bridge between Ergo and Cardano. We have plans to integrate it into Spectrum UI, so to provide our users with another way of transferring liquidity from Ergo to Cardano. Yeah, that answers the question. And you also asked about some more points. Can you repeat, please? I already forgot about them.
Yeah, what do you think about the future of Ergo?
Yeah, so the future of Ergo. Well,
I'm an interviewer.
Yeah, thank you. So Ergo is being developed as a great secure platform for different decentralized protocols. So I guess it will continue to do so. It's a very good, elegant layer 1 blockchain that is easy to build on. And I guess with the growth of demand on Ergo transactions, we will see more solutions like rollups, side chains, solutions like Spectrum. So we decided to build Spectrum because we kind of envision a bottleneck which we will hit in the nearest future if we try to build something more complex than just a DEX. We were researching other DeFi protocols which we can build and add to Spectrum. In that time it was called ErgoDEX. So we were thinking how to implement lending protocol, option vaults, and it turned out that those protocols are so complex that they will be simply nearly impractical to build on Ergo when it hits some limit in terms of TPS. Currently, there is not much demand for transactions on Ergo, so we see that transaction fees are quite low, and transactions are more or less fast, 2 minutes or so. But as people will come to Ergo, the demand for Ergo is increasing. The throughput of the network will be not the throughput will be decreasing, but the demand will lead to the activation of fee market. and fee market will generate higher and higher transaction fees. So transactions with lower fees will wait. Just we saw it in Bitcoin, in Ethereum. It's a very common thing. So the solution is to build layer 2 networks and rollups. And yeah, how we come up with Spectrum, we envision that we will hit sooner or later this bottleneck, and we should prepare a proper backend to address those issues. We need a tool to build more complex DeFi protocols on top of it, and Spectrum is designed for that purpose.
Yeah, and just my 50,
go ahead.
From my perspective, I will not cover a lot the technical part of all of we are doing. I'd like to say that we want to build not only a technical bridge between 2 or more chains, we also would like to create a bridge for users to know. We'd like more users to know about Ergo, and I think we building not only this tool for transferring coins from one chain to another, we also build a bridge between communities. That is something what we want to build at the end. So yeah, because we know that Ergo Foundation can't invest a lot of resources to the marketing, because it is just an idea of their allocation of their tokenomics. They didn't allocate a lot of tokens for the foundation just to keep the ecosystem decentralized. So we aim to help them to acquire more users to the ecosystem, and that is our kind of a non-technical goal for the project.
Wonderful. Who else is on your team other than who's actually building this out? Is it just you, Ilya? Yasha, you manage the marketing, or what are the roles here in your team, and who's missing from the interview?
Yeah, we actually have about 15 people in our team. So it's a couple of core developers, a couple of front-end developers, marketing people, community manager, Gaza.
Yeah, Gary.
Also, yeah. Also Q&A engineer, people responsible for testing, for research, for the core math part of our protocols. So it's not only us.
Okay, I would hope
Spectrum
not.
Yeah, Spectrum is becoming too huge, too complex to build in solo.
Yeah, I was hoping you would say that, because I was gonna say if Ilya was doing this all on his own, I hope there's no windows in his apartment, or in his home.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's clear to me now, after having this great interview with you all, that Spectrum is really its own project and platform, not just something that is an add-on to Ergo per se, but a fully fledged project with organization and a lot of technical components and challenges that are unique to what you're building on your own. So I commend that. That is not easy. I can tell just by listening to how you explain things from a technical point of view. You want to build it correctly, and you also want to get it out to the masses, but it's also solving problems that some of which you identified that are shortcuts to to avoiding true decentralization and things of that nature. It is not easy. I would assume some people in government would want somebody like you, Ilya, that can understand all of this non-KYC activity and how these things function, because it seems like somebody like you would be very valuable for regulators to understand more about this. Really, it's like you have an economics degree in cryptocurrencies and tokenized assets and how these frameworks function. You might be the next Binance guy launching a decentralized Binance. Anyway, my headphones died. So that usually means the interview is over. I want to thank you, Ilya, and I want to thank you, Yasha, both of you for taking the time out. I know you're very busy to come explain what you're building with Spectrum Labs. I think everybody is looking forward to not only the Ergo side, but all of the other components that are very valuable, like the non-custodial wallet and having a built-in DEX that is built properly. And we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, for inviting us.
So for those of you watching, I will put a few links in the description to their Medium page and to their social channels. I believe you even have your own Discord server, right?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
So feel free, even if you're not interested in Ergo, if you're just interested on the Cardano side or some other side, look into them. They're very responsible, and they're probably one of the best projects to have come out of an Ergo-centric origin. So please look into them, and thank you guys for your time, and thank you all for watching.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, guys.
See you.